Welcome in to episode 240 of the Night Shift Podcast. Mike, a couple of games that we got to get to here on the show. You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Chromecast, another great option as well. We are also on YouTube. Full episodes, you can go stream there and follow the London Knights for all kinds of content. Mike, 2 games in the weekend, a perfect weekend for the Knights, another overtime game, which we're going to dive into the stats a little bit more and see how many overtime games were the most during a regular season in the internet era. The Knights are already on a pretty good path to getting somewhat close to that number. But, you know, Mike, I do want to start with that overtime game. We're going to talk Team of the Century too. But that overtime game on the Friday was a good measuring stick game for the Knights coming in. It was them versus the 67s. Ottawa, a very solid team. You felt it early in the game. The Knights did have a lead in the beginning. Ottawa was able to claw back and tie it at 2. But your thoughts and takeaways on the game and then that overtime session as well.
Well, you've got 2 World Junior Championship caliber coaches, 2 excellent coaches who always seem to, when they get together, with the exception of, I think it was last year in Ottawa where the Knights had 8 goals in the second period. But normally these are low-scoring affairs. You go back a couple of years, George Diaco is scoring a shootout winner to break a scoreless tie because no one had scored for 65 minutes. And it was tight like that again, where you've got 2 teams that are going to really try and limit any kind of mistakes, limit any kind of opportunities. And the Knights methodically built themselves a 2-0 lead. And then Ottawa, as Ottawa can do, fought back. Remember, this is a team that started the year 6-0. The 67s are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. So they start the year 6-0. They are a team that relies basically on the hole. And when that happens, you're going to try and take advantage of opportunities. Puck goes in off a skate, it's 2-1. And then quick little pass in front, it's 2-2 as the puck kind of goes in off the post. If Cooper Foster tried to make that shot 4 times, maybe it goes in the 1 time. If he tries to make it 10 times, maybe it goes in the 1 time. That was a difficult thing to do. He did it. He ties the game. And the Knights, again, are put into that position of, okay, the other team has grabbed the momentum, but this is overtime, and we feel comfortable in overtime. 7 times in 11 games as of that Friday game, they had gone beyond regulation. And Kyle, the weird thing is, 7 times, they have not been to a shootout. These have been decided one way or another.
Well, I know that's what they wanted. They wanted the National Hockey League, those games to end faster and not get to the shootout. And we've seen it from the Knights, Mike. I mean, these games are back and forth. The one thing that you notice anytime any team goes to overtime is the control of possession off the starting faceoff, how valuable and how important that opening possession is. And of course, who starts the faceoff and gets the possession? Captain Sam O'Reilly. First game, of course, being anointed captain of the team. You got your 2 assistants on the back end. But Sam, after a couple of scuffles in the beginning, the ref doesn't drop it. They reset. He wins the faceoff. And Mike, I don't think the Knights gave up control of the puck until Ben Wilmot put the puck in the back of the net.
Yeah, and it was kind of right off a draw. A power play ensues, and when you get a 4-on-3 power play, Ben Wilmot puts it right inside the post, short side, beautiful shot, great goal, his second overtime winner. He's one of those guys that doesn't mind the big stages, and you'll always love to have those guys on your team. It's weird, Kyle, when they brought in 3-on-3 overtime, it was the 2015-2016 season. So history of overtime goes this way. They brought it in 5-on-5, just play, and games would end. And some games would end in a tie. And then after a little while, they decided, let's make it 4-on-4. And I think that came in late 90s, 99, 2000. And then it stayed that way until 2015-16 when 3-on-3 came in. But I think the biggest tweak, and remember, Wayne Gretzky gave the thumbs up to the 3-on-3, saying it was maybe the best thing to happen to hockey for how it looked. And the timing was right because you had the skill level where you needed it to play 3-on-3, where it wasn't going to be just too much space out there. People were actually going to be creating things. Guys were such good skaters, so fast. But the big change came in when they made you switch ends. This has been the thing. It's the weirdest thing. You would say, wait a minute, what do you mean? It might as well go to 2-on-2. What are you talking about? Switch ends? It doesn't matter. It does, because it makes that long change. And when this is about possession and players are so good at keeping the puck, it was originally thought, remember when the changing of the ends came in? It was thought, you know what the biggest advantage on this is going to be? The bench. Because somebody is going to go in the door nearest to their zone, and then you'll have another guy pop out right near the end of the bench, and you get like 20 feet. You can make this big long pass. That's what the expectation was. It hasn't been that at all. It's pinning a team in their own zone. They can't change. You go round and round a little bit. You make them move. You tire them out, and then you drag the puck back into center, change two guys, and boom, it happens. The San Jose Sharks just won a game in overtime. The only rested guy on the ice for San Jose, because they didn't have the puck, was Macklin Celebrini. He was the guy that ended up scoring the winning goal. It's those fresh legs. How do you get them on? But that's been a big difference in this. And the Knights, they have no problem being in overtime. We talked with Rick Stedman after the game, Knights assistant coach, and he said, yeah, there is really a comfort level because you've been there, you've done that, you've done it 7 times. So where does this rank? There's the question. Where does this rank? Think just for a minute. In a 68-game season, what would the highest number of overtime games for a single team be? It's more than 7, but what would it be? I don't know, like 1 every 6?
I was going to say 1 every 4 is even a lot, like 15-ish, maybe 16, like at the max.
So that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. The answer, 21. And it's happened 3 times in the internet era. So the internet era stretches back in the OHL. We basically call it that because that's where the public records go back to. So anything before 97, 98, we don't have access to. It's in a filing cabinet somewhere. I'm really hoping the QMJHL did this one summer. I don't know how many interns they had to hire. I don't know who did this, but they put everything online. So you can go back and you can find Guy Lafleur in box scores. You can find Mario Lemieux in box scores. And it's a lot of fun to do that. One day, I know the OHL will do it. I have complete faith. But right now, we can go back to when things fit nicely onto the internet about 97, 98. We all had email addresses. Still had no idea how to use it. There weren't as many websites, but that's when it all began. So 21 is the number. How many times has it been done? 3 times. It was actually done in 97, 98 by the Sarnia Sting, who the Knights played yesterday as we record this. And it was done by the Barrie Colts. And for that, it was fairly recently for the Barrie Colts. It was 22-23. And then it was done one other time by the Mississauga Steelheads in 2016-17 when it was just starting 3-on-3 overtime. So 2 times when it's been 3-on-3, 1 time when it was, I believe, still 5-on-5. So Sarnia getting to overtime that many times is crazy. For the London Knights, most times in the internet era, 20. So they're right close. So that just shows you how often this does actually happen, where teams will pile up a lot of overtime games. 20. And then think about this. What year would that be? Immediately people are going to say, was it last year? No. Team of the century in 2004, 2005? No. Max Domi and Bo Horvat, 2012, 2013, something like that. That would make sense. Nope, wasn't that. It was 2006, 2007. And when you say that, you think, okay, who was playing on the Knights in 2006, 2007? 2 players, and you could even say 3, instrumental at winning a lot in overtime. Patrick Kane, Stan Gagne, and also Sergei Kostitsyn. And if I remember it right, those 3 plus a defenseman were usually on the ice to begin things.
Lord.
And get this, of those 20 games that the Knights played in overtime in 06-07, they won 16 of them, either in overtime or in a shootout. And there were a couple. I mean, I'm just going by memory here. So the legend around the fire pit just kind of grows a little bit. But the puck would drop. Somebody'd get the puck to Patrick Kane. He'd step across the blue line, make this little shimmy move.
That's it.
And bury it. And that was the end of overtime. I think that happened against the Guelph Storm at least once, maybe twice. So it does happen more than you would think that a team hits overtime. In this case, almost a third of their season. A third of the season, roughly. And the Knights are on pace for that right now. We'll see whether that continues.
That's fantastic. Patrick Kane's the obvious one, but I think sneakily you throw in the name Sam Gagne. Sam Gagne was a filthy junior player. Also, like an unbelievable NHL player. He had one of the nicest shootout moves I've ever seen, where he'd get goalies going so far to the right, he just cut back and just slip the puck in. It was unreal. His hands were so slick, but yeah, you throw Kostitsyn, Gagne, and Kane on the ice. Not a whole lot you're going to be able to do about that, unfortunately.
It
Oh my
was it
God.
was a lethal combination when those guys were out there together, and they often played together on a line. They were just tough to deal with. That was a team. If you think about the London Knights, we're going to be talking about the Team of the Century documentary film that Annie Stewart and Paul Culleton have done a little later on, and we'll be talking about the 04-05 season. We had a little roundtable with Lee Cunningham, who was the TV voice of the Sarnia, or of the London Knights at the time. He's the radio voice of the Sarnia Sting right now. And so that comes up later in the pod. But you would think, coming off the 04-05 season, eventually you had to hit a point where things kind of had to rebuild a little bit. But the Knights went to the final the next year, led by Dylan Hunter and Rob Schremp and Dave Boland and Adam Dennis. And then it was the year after that, when those guys had graduated, that Patrick Kane and Sam Gagne came, and they led that team to the Western Conference Championship Series. So that's just the kind of player that we saw coming through, and the kind of success that they continued to carry this franchise to.
Absolutely insane. It just the turnover of you see a year where even the team of the century has so much turnover in players, and then the next guys step up and players get inserted into the team, and just it's the run that this team has had for the last 20 plus years of making the playoffs and going on runs is astounding, to say that. Like, when you lose the team of the century and you lose some of the guys on that team and how special they were, and then you roll over and you look back now and you go, well, Patrick Kane and Sam Gagne were just instrumental in that team's success. And it just, year after year, you go look at their rosters and you just see the level of player that has come into the team. It's remarkable to go back and look at.
And I think that leads us nicely into the game against Sarnia, because I really believe this is an example of the ingredients that allow the team to do that. It is the skill of the players, yes, and it will always be the skill of the players. But how do the players have that skill, develop that skill? It is the management and the scouting that finds the players, and it is the coaching staff that develops them. And it's the same thing that we highlight, and it deserves to be highlighted after a 3-0 win over the Sarnia Sting in Sarnia. And Sarnia is a good hockey team. So a 3-0 win over the team, that is management finding good players, because there was a lot of turnover coming in, and then the coaching staff getting a chance to work with it. Those are two massive keys to success in junior hockey. So many teams do one of those things well. Some teams might struggle with both, but so many teams do one of those well. It's really hard to do both of those well. And I think they won't want the accolades, but we're about to give them another accolade. But Mark and Dale Hunter and their staffs, so management staff involving Rob Simpson, the associate general manager, and the scouting staff, and then the coaching staff, Dale Hunter with Dylan Hunter and Rick Stedman, and Dave Rook as the goalie coach, and all of the other coaching acumen that they have around the team. You see Rob Simpson on the ice too, working with the players. So all of that needs to get a pat on the back right now. They don't want it. It all goes to the players, but it needs to be there. Mark and Dale Hunter also were honored this past week as inductees into the London and District Business Hall of Fame. So congratulations to them, because the other thing that you could ask living in London is this. If the London Knights moved downtown into, at first, the John Labatt Center, then Budweiser Gardens, and now Canada Life Place, it's been the same building, but it's had 3 names. If they move down there and do not have success, does the downtown look how it does right now? That's the question. And that's an honest question. If they do not have the success, the reason for 9,000 people to come downtown every Friday night and every time they play a home game, does the downtown look like it does, with all of the towers, with all of the restaurants, with all of just that energy that is there? I don't think it does. And to see them recognized as inductees into the London and District Business Hall of Fame was incredible.
Yeah, there are a lot of local businesses, of course. Local businesses have their ups and downs of struggle, and it's understandable. But within that area, and there are so many like focal spots that fans go to religiously before and after games, and it's because those Friday nights are reserved for those 9,000 plus fans that are in attendance every single game. And then you think of, Mike, of all the playoff runs that they have and the watch parties that they do at Dundas, where they set up the screen and they open up Canada Life Place. You can get, and it's an entire environment atmosphere, and has now been a community event that people have been going to consistently for, as we mentioned, 15, 20 plus years now, of this successful team that has constantly made the playoffs and been a driving force in the community of London. And the Hunters they are at the forefront of it, whether they like hearing the compliments or not, or taking any of the critique. They have done an outstanding job from building it to what it is today.
Well, congratulations to them. If we look back to the Sarnia game, that was a coaching clinic. It was so well played by the team. 3-0 is the score. Seb Gatto needs a lot of accolades from this as well, because he stopped 21 shots for his first OHL shutout, made some really tough saves. He made a save where he was being forced to come across left to his right and somehow was able to leave his left leg where it wasn't supposed to be. It should have moved. Kyle, I don't know how goaltenders do that, but it seemed to stay in place. The rest of him came over to cover the rest of the net, and the left leg made the save.
It's determination, it's grit, it's finding a way to make a save and doing everything you can possible to get a body part. There's so many, like the ways that you like traject the puck, and there's so much movement and specifics that you need to have as a goaltender. And then sometimes you get a coach come up to you and just make the save. Do whatever you got to do to make the save. There's, you're cutting down angles, you're lateral driving from one post to another, you're coming out into butterfly, you're tracking pucks, your position is so sound, you're putting pucks into the corner with rebound control, you're forcing traffic a certain way. You're coming out and playing the puck. I could go on forever about this, but sometimes at the end of the day, Mike, you're just looking to make a save. And that was what Seb Gatto did. It's fun seeing that, because all your training, everything kind of like goes out the window a little bit, and your instincts kick in, and you just want to stick a leg out, an arm, do anything you can to make the save.
We had a chance to talk with Seb about his first OHL shutout after the game. First OHL shutout. When do you allow yourself to think, okay, this could happen?
Try not to think about it, because you can't really, only thing I can do for the outcome is play my own game, so try not to think about it too much.
There were a lot of big saves in that game. I mean, take us through the one where you're coming across left to right and you leave your left leg, it seems, all the way over it. But do you remember that one?
Yeah, no, it was nice. It was just trying to read the rush and see who's there, and credit to the guys tonight, man. So many guys are getting shots, and it's a team shutout. It's not just me, so it's good.
Getting that on the road, getting that with the style of game you played, what do you think that says about this team?
Just the resiliency, the will to win, and that third period effort. Like I don't think I had three shots maybe, and they just want to win so bad, and it's so awesome to see, and just the effort, blocking shots and whatnot was great.
London Knights goaltender Seb Gatto, and remember, he hadn't played for 3 games. The last time he played was actually against the Sarnia Sting when the Knights beat them in overtime 5-4 at Canada Life Place. Alexei Medvedev had gone in and played both games against Kitchener, had played against Ottawa, and now Gatto comes in when called upon. Boom, he's there making those stops. And we also saw the hometown push where Rene Van Bommel, who's from Strathroy, and Evan Van Gorp, who is from Watford, you put them on the ice in Sarnia, something special happens. Rene Van Bommel averages a point per game over the last year and now 2 games against Sarnia. He's averaging a point per game. Evan Van Gorp has 2 assists in the game, sets up Jared Woolley for the first goal of the game with his amazing pass. And so those 2 guys on the Sarnia Sting ice are lethal, and the hometown push was for real. We had a chance to talk with Evan Van Gorp after the game as well. So, Evan, you come to this area, success just kind of follows you, Van Bommel? I mean, what is it that allows for that?
I don't know, I know this rink pretty well, played here a lot, so maybe that has something to do with it.
Tell us a little bit about how difficult the win was in Sarnia.
Yeah, it was tough. We knew they were going to come out hot, and we just stuck to our game cycles and worked hard, and we got it done.
Getting that third period locked down, what does that mean for the team?
That's big. We've been struggling with the third period. We're letting teams back into it, so that was kind of the main focus after the second was just to shut them down and in regulation.
London Knights forward Evan Van Gorp. And the one thing the Knights really did, that you're playing that perfect road game. And this is getting back to just the way that the game plan was put together. If you can make the other team's stars look good, but not stars. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
They're always going to look good. They're good players. They're going to be making plays, but they don't look like stars. And the Knights were able to do that, where you could see talent on the other side, but that talent just never really got to make the plays that it wanted to. End of the game, 3-0 Knights.
If you can make the other team, not look dangerous, even though they've got dangerous players, but all of a sudden, when they have the puck, if your players are eliminating threats and playing their positions to perfection and really forcing the other team to go outside of what they're used to being able to do, one, it makes life incredibly difficult for your opponent, but it frustrates them and it forces them to do things they're not as comfortable doing. And like you said, when you average the other team to 7 shots a period, Seb Gatto is fantastic. As a goalie, I will never take away a shutout. But that is a team, that's a team shutout. Your team is limiting the amount of high danger scoring chances and shots on goal in general and really doing a good job in front of you and making your life as a goaltender easier. Then as the goaltender, you got to come in and just do your job and everything kind of syncs together. And that's a huge plus when you can limit a team to 21 shots over an entire game. That's, you called it, Mike, a coaching clinic.
It was, and it reminds me of a game. I think it was the Knights going into Oshawa playing John Tavares and the Oshawa Generals, and that was a tough matchup. This is before Tavares obviously moved to London. He was on the Oshawa side, and if I'm recalling it right, the Knights won that game 3-0, and it looked similar, where you had outstanding players on the other side who, looked good, but didn't look, you used the right word right there, Kyle, dangerous. Didn't look dangerous. You kept them from being dangerous. Speaking of Tavares, watch for him. He's at 499 goals. 48 NHL players have made it to the 500-goal club. He's knocking on the door. And Patrick Kane, who we were talking about not too far away, 494 goals in his career. So a couple of milestones to watch for from a couple of guys who spent some time, not a lot of time, but enough time, in London, Ontario, playing for the London Knights. London, Ontario got a chance to see the team of the century, the documentary film about the 04-05 London Knights. The Forest City Film Festival began on Friday, October the 24th, and the world premiere of this movie, complete with red carpet, was on Saturday, October the 25th, and it was incredible. We had so many fans of the London Knights who had been there for a long time. The Wolf Performance Hall was jammed, and you had a film that has such a fantastic beginning. And after the film, we had a question and answer session with Brandon Prust, who was there, part of the team of the century, Rob Schremp, who was on hand, Danny Savret, the captain and executive producer of the team of the century film, and Annie Stewart, the director. So if you haven't seen anything about this just yet, here is the trailer for the team of the century.
Ready to go?
Batted in by David Bolin.
It's home.
40 years for this. Your team is about to win its first Memorial Cup.
They won, and they won, and they won, and they won, and it just kept going.
You know what your abilities are, and you have an opportunity to show them.
They're unbeaten in 30 games.
Where, let's say we're down 4-1 going into the third. They still think they can win.
We had a tough first game against Rimouski, but we potentially could have went undefeated that year.
But they were living out their dream at 16.
That was the only shift I was allowed to play against Sidney Crosby. There's always going to be that bond, so it's it's definitely a special group.
You're right there. Go win this fight for us, okay?
So now you get a picture. This tells the story of that team, and it tells it so well, and it's told, this is one of the most remarkable parts, by a director who has an important milestone from 2005, but it's that she was born in 2005. Annie Stewart turned 20 this year on the anniversary, the 20th anniversary of the team of the century. And yet she was able to piece this together and tell a beautiful story about this team. And it was incredible to see it all play out. There are a couple of other viewings that are happening. Now, you're going to have to get your tickets quickly. If you go to fcff.ca, I'm looking at it right now as we speak, and we're recording this on Monday, October the 27th, so check back. So fcff.ca, there are still some tickets available for the noon showing on October the 29th. That's the Wednesday at noon. That will have a question and answer afterward. You'll hear from Annie. You'll hear from Danny Savret. I believe Rob Schremp will be on hand again. And then also on the Saturday, November the 1st, so the day after Halloween, there was a showing at Imagine Cinemas. There are still tickets available for that at $2.15, but those tickets are going to go quickly, and this is the way to see this film because you want to see it on that big screen. You want to see it as these guys are brought back to life, some of those pivotal moments from 2004, 2005. And what we did was we had a chance to sit down in Sarnia because in 2004, 2005, Lee Cunningham, play-by-play voice of the Sarnia Sting, was the TV play-by-play voice of the London Knights. So Lee and Jim Van Horne and myself sat down to just take you back to some of those memories, maybe whet the appetite for going to see the full-length feature documentary. The Team of the Century, the documentary done by Annie Stewart and Paul Culleton that looks at the 2005 Memorial Cup Championship winning London Knights and documents their run, has had its world premiere. And it's happening at the Forest City Film Festival and playing at the Forest City Film Festival for the duration of the Forest City Film Festival. One of the prominent voices in that particular documentary is Lee Cunningham, the voice of the Sarnia Sting. And Jim Van Horne and I have a chance to sit down right now and talk a little bit about the 2005 season. And Lee, we were kind of kidding with Danny Savret and Rob Schremp and Brandon Prust about their memories of, goes back a little while now, 20 years.
Yeah.
Robbie Schremp is quick to say, hey, we're not in a senior's home yet. We can still think about this. But when you think back, that year, is there anything that jumps to mind right away, or is it kind of the whole thing all at once?
I think it was the start to the season, guys. I mean, they got off to such a prominent start that resulted in that 31-game unbeaten stretch. And I remember the night it ended, I believe it was against the Sudbury Wolves, if I'm not mistaken, at the old John Labatt Center. And I think that really, really kind of set the table for what might come. Who knew, though, that it was going to be the season that it was? And one of the greatest seasons, quite obviously, in the history of the Canadian Hockey League. And you couple that with the fact that the NHL was on a layoff and the city of London was the mecca for the hockey business. And I kind of, one of my vivid memories was I remember the game, one of the games against the Ottawa 67s in the OHL final. I remember Chris Burkholz, who still produces for Rogers Television. He's done a great job over the years. You know, we're about 5 minutes to airtime, and he said, you know, we might get 2-3 million people watching this tonight. I said, you had to tell me that right before we go to air. So many wonderful, wonderful memories. And, you know, still to this day, the best power play, the most cohesive power play that I've ever seen was that unit that they were able to throw out there, and a lot of success with that man advantage among other areas of their operations.
Yeah, Brandon Prust kept using the word, Jim, perfect, that there was so much about that year that just went perfectly.
And as you look back 20 years now with the gift of time, you see how important that team was and what it changed in junior hockey. It wasn't that far into Mark and Dale's ownership tenure, but Lee, every week you felt some magic, a show.
What are they going to do? What are they going to do next?
Right.
What are they going to do next? Terrific. Absolutely terrific in that respect. And the other thing I really liked about that hockey club, guys, was their secondary depth players. You had, obviously, your Dylan Hunters and Rob Schremps and Corey Perrys and players like that, but, you know, to get a Dan Girardi and a Drew Larman from the Sarnia Sting, who was just the perfect third line forward for that group, good in the face-off dot. Players like that just complemented that main group. I think that was part of the charm for that group as well.
When we look at kind of the run through the regular season, you mentioned it, highlighted by that 31-game unbeaten streak, and the game that features so prominently in the documentary is the one in which they came back from that deficit against the Kitchener Rangers. They were down 3-0. And then all of a sudden, goal after goal after goal. Robbie Schremp ties it. Brian Rodney wins it in overtime. Things like that. I mean, when you're watching that league, what is that like?
Yeah, you're watching what turned out to be arguably the greatest season in the Canadian Hockey League when you really break it down. And they found every way to win. Was it a great goaltending performance from either a Gerald Coleman or an Adam Dennis? They just had all those intangibles where they're going to put up 3 power play goals in a hockey game. And the thing about it is, too, they had the support of 9,100 patrons each and every night. And I think that has to be factored in. You look up and you see no empty seats whatsoever on any given night. If that doesn't give you motivation, I don't know what does. And I think, too, we should maybe factor in Dale Hunter's become pretty good at coaching this league over time, and Mark Hunter's done a pretty good job of putting together and constructing hockey teams. Those two individuals certainly have to be mentioned in this discussion.
You look back, and it was when junior hockey went from a mom and pop operation to a super mall. A big time business and a big time entertainment event.
Yeah, you're right.
The entertainment, and as you said, the final game with the deck cleared and Sidney Crosby at the Memorial Cup final, you felt junior hockey. When I look back, that was when junior hockey took a big step forward on so many levels.
That's a great way to phrase it, going from sort of I would say its infancy. It was always a prominent league, but that season really showcased, and you're getting more in terms of the advent of television and that kind of thing, more vehicles to showcase the league and the great players that came from it. But to this day, I know in talking to you guys, the City of London, it just reveres that team and everything that's gone with it. There's been great teams in the past and great players that have gone through those doors. The banners at Canada Life Place suggested, but it's a year to remember. And for me personally, guys, it was something that kind of put me on the map a little bit. I was fairly early in my broadcasting career in the league, and it kind of put my name out there a little bit. And fortunately, I've been able to carry on 20 odd years later.
There you are.
Absolutely.
And you look at the story and the fairy tale element of it. You have no National Hockey League. What if you had a year that didn't bring together Sidney Crosby and Corey Perry in the Memorial Cup?
Ryan Kilray, Shea Weber. I mean, you look down the list.
You couldn't have scripted that any better than the way it worked out. And, Jim, there's no script.
Some things are just meant to be and have a magic to them that you understand through the gift of time and through the gift now of what Annie Stewart, who was just born that year, has been able to put together in the Team of the Century documentary. You got to see the film. A couple of viewings this week in London. Make sure you get out to see it because it's definitely worth your while.
Gentlemen, really appreciate the chat.
Absolutely. Anytime. Great memory, without a doubt, and a very, very special season in my memories, that's for sure.
Amazing memories from that year, and the stories just continue to come up. We told one of my favorites on stage because you could see it, and I don't know whether Annie meant to keep this in the film, whether she even knew the story, but at the end of the Memorial Cup final, Dale Hunter put out all of the overage players. And so you had all of the guys who would be graduating on the ice. It was 4-0. Rimouski had pulled the goalie. They did not want to be shut out. If they weren't going to win the Memorial Cup, they were at least going to score a goal.
Yeah.
So they pulled the goalie in a 4-0 game. And time is ticking down. The play goes into the London zone. And then you see bottom right-hand corner, Brandon Prust picks up the puck and starts wheeling down the ice. It's one of my favorite stories from that final game. But he and Dylan Hunter and Trevor Kell had done such a great job shutting down Sidney Crosby's 5-man unit.
Yes.
They basically came out as a 5-man 5-man unit over and over and over again. And Dylan Hunter, and he captures it perfectly, just how he did it against Sidney Crosby, to the point Crosby was frustrated at the end of that game. But Brandon Prust is going for the open net, and we asked him about it on stage, and he admitted, hey, I always play every game to the end of the game. The buzzer, the horn, the whistle, whatever ended it. You got to play it to the end. That's what we're taught as London Knights. He had the puck on his stick. There was an empty net. He was going to go down, and then he realized, yeah, it's already over, and got back into the dog pile at the other end of the ice. We have to watch for that because it's right in the bottom corner. And
okay.
If you're able to see it on the big screen, depending on where you're sitting, it's almost like, oh, it's right in front of you that's taking place. And I thought it was great in that format to be able to see that. But hey, so many great memories, and you hear from Rick Doyle, and you hear from Greg Sloan, and you hear from Jim Van Horne, and you hear from players like Josh Beaulieu and Brian Rodney, and obviously Rob Schremp and Brandon Prust and Danny Sabrett. You hear from Dale Hunter. So all of these memories of just what it was like and how clear those are. And we even asked Annie, I joked with her, I mean, how are the memories of the guys as you were asking them all of these questions about something happening 20 years ago? And Rob Schremp darted in and he goes, hey, it's not like we're headed to the seniors home next week. It wasn't that long ago. But they did a great job retelling it.
I was going to say, I've had a chance to speak with Robbie a couple of times, and just such a character of an individual. And I can only imagine he's just rattling off stories left, right, and center. But, big kudos. We've had a chance, Mike, to work with Annie for a little bit over the past few years, and the dedication that she has to the organization and the passion that she has to. It is not surprising that you tell me how well she captured that team of the century and all of the different people she was able to bring together and recreate that. So bravo to everybody involved. But, Annie being the director specifically, good job.
Yeah, she is a star, and it actually began as a school project. That's where it actually began. This was going to be about, 5-10 minute piece, and then there was so much more to it and so much more to it. And then it just organically grew into what is a 90-minute feature-length documentary, and right now being showcased at the Forest City Film Festival. And if Saturday, the 25th of October, was any indication, there are a lot of people who are going to be able to enjoy it the rest of the way. One of the other showings is already sold out. So again,
yes, it is.
Check that out, fcff.ca. Up next for the London Knights will be a road trip. The Knights are in the midst of 5 consecutive road games. They won't return home until they play the Kingston Frontenacs on November the 7th. So get your tickets for that at londonnights.com. But they will play in Peterborough, in Ottawa on Halloween. So in Peterborough on October 30th. In Ottawa on Halloween night, and then in Kingston on November the 2nd. That's a 4:00 game. Then they have a stop in Guelph on the Wednesday following, and then they do come back home. So they've seen what Ottawa shows. Peterborough has started to take some steps up. They've got a couple of very dangerous import players. And the Kingston Frontenacs, when you looked at their roster in the summer, you thought, I don't know. I don't know if they have the depth to really compete. And they've been competing, and they've got some new additions that some of them, because of the change in the NCAA rule, are now in the Ontario Hockey League that have really taken on a lot of the load. So we'll have some audio previews of Peterborough, Ottawa, and Kingston for you as we go along. As we get to the end of this episode, we do want to take a moment and spend some time talking about Jake Patterson. We lost Jake Patterson at the age of 31. He was a goaltender from Sault Ste. Marie who had been drafted by the Plymouth Whalers, and he had basically come to the Knights for the 2011-2012 season. So he was at training camp, but he came down with mono. The Knights had acquired him from the Whalers in the offseason, and he came down with mono, and so he wasn't able to start the season, and the Knights, needing a backup goaltender, went out and made a trade, and Tyson Teichman was the guy who backed up Michael Hauser that year. Jake was able to go and play for the London Nationals and got a lot of great reps eventually. His season obviously was cut very short by mono. It's tough to come back to, especially as a goaltender, and so he was able to go to the Nationals, and then the next year kind of hit the ground running with the Knights in a goaltending tandem with Anthony Stolarz. And that was the year when the Knights won back-to-back OHL championships. And you look at the role that he played. There was a sharing of the net throughout. In the playoffs, Anthony Stolarz had kind of taken over a lot of the starts. And the Knights got into the OHL Championship Series against the Barrie Colts and Mark Scheifele, and there were other players on the team. It was a very, very good team. And Barrie went up 3-1. And Dale Hunter, as he sometimes does in games, one of the things that you can do to try and shift momentum is make a goaltending change. And it's not on the goaltender, but let's just change things up. He does that for game number 5. And the Knights win it. And then they go to Barrie and they win game 6 in overtime. And then they come home. And Jake Patterson was in net for games 5, 6, and 7. So helping the London Knights to win that championship. He and Anthony Stolarz split the net again at the Memorial Cup. I mean, that was a tough Memorial Cup. You had Nathan MacKinnon, Jonathan Drouin, and you also had Seth Jones at that Memorial Cup. You essentially had what was thought to be 1, 2, 3 in selections in the National Hockey League. It was a crazy, crazy Memorial Cup for talent. And Halifax and Nathan MacKinnon and Jonathan Drouin eventually won that Memorial Cup. But Jake was a big part. He was in net as the Knights nearly knocked off Portland. They lost 2-1 in the Memorial Cup semifinal. And then Jake was able to play the next season in the GOHL. He played the next season actually with the London Knights again, and then finished up his career with the Chatham Maroons. And again, we lost Jake, and we're going to miss him dearly because he was a phenomenal human being. And a GoFundMe has been set up for his son, Luca. And so if you search on GoFundMe for Jake and Luca, it'll come up and you'll see Jake's face and you'll see his son, Luca. So if you wanted to contribute for Luca, all the money is just going to go to Luca as he grows up. He's about 3 years old. And so we wanted to share some memories of Jake Patterson, but he was certainly a part of this organization through some of its highest heights. The Bo Horvat, 0.1 seconds left, Game 7, championship winning goal. Jake was the guy who helped the Knights to get to that moment to allow Bo to score that late in a game.
Yeah. It just incredible. They did an homage to him on the Friday and a moment of silence, and they talked about his involvement with the team and then his son Luca, and that hit everybody. And the fact that the GoFundMe, originally they only had, I think we talked about it, 5,000, and the fact that it's well over 30 now and it's consistently going is just, it's remarkable. It's a testament to the community and everybody that has jumped on board and helped out, and anything that anyone can do is going to help set Luca up for the years where he starts to get older. And I'm not worried at all that he is going to hear some incredible stories about his father and what he meant, not just to the team but as a person in general. And really is it's fantastic seeing that, but obviously great being able to shed a little bit of light. And we're going to miss him.
So search Jake and Luca on GoFundMe if you are looking to help out. And thank you on behalf of the organization for everyone who has already done that. We have the Knights and the Peterborough Petes, the Knights and the Ottawa 67s, and the Knights and the Kingston Frontenacs to come as the Knights head out on a road trip east, and they head out having gone 7-0-1 in their last 8 games. So we'll have the pregame shows on the Thursday and the Friday, the 30th of October and the 31st of October at 6:30, and play-by-play will start shortly after 7. We'll look forward to that. Kyle, thanks for this.
No, thank you, Mike. Enjoy the road trip. We'll be back again in a couple of weeks at home, and then follow along again with the podcast. Any episodes that you've missed on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and again, follow us for the full videos up on the Knights YouTube page. Mike, enjoy. We'll see you next time.